MNN, in partnership with League of Women Voters of the City of New York, presents Race to Represent, multimedia coverage of Manhattan elections, Council District 9 debate.
The League of Women Voters of the City of New York and the Manhattan Neighborhood Network are pleased to welcome you to a debate between the candidates running in the Democratic primary on September 10th in Council District Number 9. The winner will be the Democratic nominee for that seat in the November election. I'm Valerie Warner, and I represent the League of Women Voters. All the candidates will be running in the new council districts that were drawn by the New York City Redistricting Commission following the results of the 2010 census. District 9 represents approximately 160,000 residents. The candidates are seated in the order of their closing statements and will have several rounds of questions. We'll start with up to 1-minute responses with 30-second rebuttals at my discretion. Starting from my left, let me introduce Mr. Vincent Morgan and the incumbent City Councilwoman Inez Dickens. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with a very important topic, affordable housing. Affordable housing is very rare in Manhattan. What can the City Council do to preserve and expand the number of affordable housing units? Mr. Morgan?
Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to say thank you very much to the League of Women Voters and the Manhattan Neighborhood Network for organizing this event today. It's a pleasure to be with you. Affordable housing is the most important issue that we have in our community. And before we talk about affordable housing as in its entirety and what we need to do in Upper Manhattan, we really need to address an important issue in our community, and that's right now. And that's the fact that the incumbent is a landlord who has proven herself to be negligent in her responsibilities as a landlord. Someone who has lost all the confidence of the people of Harlem, and someone who really needs to make sure that she doesn't continue on this charade of acting as if she does not own properties that she does. She has victimized people in our community and needs to be held accountable, and I hope you take responsibility for your actions and your failure to actually live up to your responsibilities as a landlord.
Ms. Dickens, would you like to respond?
Yes, of course, and I thank you, Valerie, and the League, and of course MNN for hosting this once again, and I'm very pleased to be on, and I'm pleased to talk about affordable housing. I want to talk about the issues. I want to talk about the record that I stand on, and not rhetoric as a perennial candidate. However, since my opponent did bring it up, I want to take a moment to address just that my opponent has utilized and been used as a pawn against me. I do not run or shy away from my family, nor the business that my family has been in. When redlining was prolific and throughout communities of color, when people of color could not afford housing, we were there as a vanguard. We stood with our community. We stayed in our community. We vested in our community in order to protect our community so that we could afford to give affordable housing. It's difficult to own. It's more difficult to own multiple dwellings. But we work together with our tenants, our residents, because we are one. We are a family that works together to preserve our affordable housing. And I hope that my opponent would agree that it's about the issues, it's about record, it's about what we have done, what we propose to do. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, would you like to answer the question, what can the City Council do to preserve and expand the number of affordable housing units?
Well, the first point is that there's a young man and his wife, David Wilburn, who's in a CBS News report that says that his pregnant wife actually fell through floorboards. This is an important issue. And it isn't something that we need to address because the confidence of the community, it's your integrity at stake here. The confidence of the community is gone, and you have a pregnant woman who had to move from one of your residences because she fell through floorboards. How do you respond to that? There's no compassion that's being shown. There's no understanding that being a 50% owner, which you like to say you're only a 50% owner in this, but you have to take 100% of the responsibility when it comes to people's lives and how they live. So before we can talk about affordable housing, we have to talk about the quality of that affordable housing. Your credibility is on the line, and you have to make sure, as we talk about affordable housing, it's affordable housing that is fair, affordable housing that is equitable, but most importantly, affordable housing that is safe for the people in our community.
Ms. Dickens?
Thank you, Valerie. I will just address it momentarily because of the accusations and harmful accusations that is being hurled at my family, who is not on trial here. And that is that if you look at our records in court, we've only been in court 6 times in 20 years. And that's because we work together. Now I want to address the question that you actually asked, and that is, what does the City Council do? Well, the City Council is mandated by law through the charter of the City of New York to do land use for the City of New York. That is, all development that is done in the City of New York comes to the City Council, unless, of course, it is done as of right, in which case they're not seeking any type of tax abatement and therefore do not need to come to the City Council. But those developments that do, it is the responsibility of the City Council to try to get as much affordability, at least those of us that come from many of our communities that don't have affordable housing. We fight to reduce the AMI. We fight to increase the number of units from the inclusionary zoning of 80-20 and try to make it as high as we possibly can for affordable units.
Thank you. Let's move on to another question. The Democratic candidates for mayor have proposed modifying mayoral control of the schools. What changes, if any, would you like to see? And do you have a position on putting charter schools in the same buildings with traditional public schools? We'll start with you, Mr. Morgan.
I am on record as saying that I have a problem with co-locations, and I have a problem with complete mayoral control over the school system. I think there needs to be more inclusion, and I think that there needs to be more of an opportunity to write the last 12 years of a particular agenda with a new mayor and a new city council, again, that has the credibility to actually represent the people of the district. The people of our community have lost faith in you because of your record that you can sit and negotiate anything. We need leadership that's going to be able to tackle these important issues of education with credibility and integrity. And ma'am, I am sorry, but you've lost that with people. You did not address answering the question, and I know, and it's not being disrespectful of your family by asking the question about your tenants. And if you treat your family that way, how do we expect you to treat your tenants? How do we expect you to treat the people in Harlem? How do we expect you to represent us when it comes to these important conversations about education? When it comes to having the credibility to stand up and represent the people of the district on issues like affordable housing, education, job creation? Ma'am, you've lost your credibility. I'm sorry.
All right, Ms. Dickens, would you like to?
Thank you so much. I will address the question because the credibility is intact. I stand on my record, and I will not continue to take the abuse that is hurled by my opponent because he has no positive record to discuss that he has actually done, when he has actually done nothing in the community except to be a perennial candidate. However, what I want to discuss is exactly what you spoke about, DOE. Right now, DOE and the charter school situation is mandated under the state of New York. I have written to the state. I'm on record for having written to the state. I'm on record for having also put in resolutions asking that the state release their control over the charter schools and over the education of the children of the city of New York, and instead allow the city of New York to actually do it. Now, their mayoral control is what has been a problem for the last 3 tenures that we've had under this mayor. And what's important is that the representatives, the local representatives, have some input, and that has not been the case. It is also important that our parents whose children actually attend should have input. And as far as the co-location of schools, I'm on the record with legislation, with resolution, and in writing that I oppose the co-location, and instead I proposed that charter schools, because I'm not against charter schools. I think parents should have whatever they feel their children needs in order to succeed. And what I have done is suggested that the charter schools could purchase or rent the numerous Catholic schools and private schools that have been closed up and are in our districts.
Thank you. This is another important...
Can I add something to the education
Yes.
question? I have two small children that go to public school in Harlem. They're students at PS 180. And, you know, I, with all due respect, Councilwoman, writing letters and standing up for resolutions is not enough. I have visited 22 of the 45 schools in Harlem in the past couple of weeks. 22 of them. There are 45 schools, and at every one of them, they say that they have not seen you present at the school. We need a city council person who prioritizes going to each and every school to talk to parents, teachers, and students. There are 365 days in a year, man. There are 45 schools. The math doesn't add up. You should be able to visit every one of those schools and bring the community together to figure out how to help that school in a better place. Now, I have skin in the game because I have two small children in public school, and it's shameful that we don't have a city council person who actually prioritizes visiting the schools as opposed to writing letters.
Ms. Dickens, yes.
Thank you, Valerie. I'm glad that my opponent discussed skin in the game. The skin in the game for me is not a game. It's a serious situation that my community is faced with. It's not a game. It's not about skin in the game. It's not about how many children you have.
My children
because
who
all
are in
the
public
children,
school, ma'am.
may I finish, Valerie, please? Yes, thank you. That all the children are my children because that's the future of all of us. And as to 180, I've been graced and I'm grateful that I have funded Mouse at the school that has brought music to the children, including my opponent's children if they're there. I also had co-authored a federal grant that brought $1.5 million to that school and the PAL Center that is right across the street. And in opening, we had the First Lady, the Honorable Mrs. Michelle Obama, who came and joined me as we cut the ribbon for the initiative that was to fight the obesity that is prolific in our city.
Okay, well, let's move on to another important topic for the community, and that's stop and frisk. There may be a change in the stop and frisk policy, but what else would you do to make our streets and neighborhoods safe? Mr. Morgan.
Directed at me, thank you very much. Stop and frisk is a very important issue, and stop and frisk is something that obviously we need to end, but I think it goes deeper. I think it's a culture in the police department that's been perpetuated by a police chief that seems to be out of touch with most of the people in this community. I hope the new mayor, working with a strong city council, is going to be able to come up with an agenda to reorganize the police department and change the philosophy and in the eternal culture to make sure that community policing becomes the norm as opposed to stop and frisk and these policies that unfortunately discriminate against too many Black and Latino youth in our city. The statistics bear out that they are being discriminated against and they are being harassed in many instances. I've witnessed it myself because I live in Harlem, and I've seen these instant raids of police officers coming out and stopping young men and harassing them. And I think that it's a cultural thing. I think it's a culture within the police department, and a strong city council and a strong new mayor are going to be able to change that.
Ms. Dickens?
All right, well, I'm not just a witness to it. I have been the recipient of stop and frisk, so I know firsthand. But having said that, I'm signed on to the Community Safety Act that my colleagues in the City Council authored. I am a strong supporter of it, and I'm one of the original persons that signed on to it. But having said that, you asked what changes could be made. My community, the community of all of the Harlems of this great city and this great country, are not against stop and frisk. What they're against is the way it is implemented and utilized against people of color. We don't want gangs to have the ability to purchase guns, to have guns in the hands of children, and shooting anyone in the streets. We don't want that. It's not against stop and frisk. It's against the policy of the way it is utilized today. And the changes that could be done is just what we are talking about within that legislation. And that is, we're talking about oversight to try to stem that type of abuse that has occurred.
Mr. Morgan, again, the City Council receives approximately $50 million in discretionary and member item funding for the 51 districts. What's your position on how this funding is allocated and who determines how the money should be used?
That's an excellent question. I am on record again as saying that I support a transparent process to make determinations about that. And I also believe that there is a portion of that money that should be open so that the public can make recommendations as to what they'd like to see within their communities. It's a significant amount of money, but it doesn't really compare to the amount of money that is going through the business cycle, the community development cycle in the city. Discretionary funds are supposed to be a kickstart within communities, and we need to have leadership, again, that has credibility to use that money to leverage it into bigger and bigger opportunities for our community. And frankly, you know, the city councilwoman here likes to talk about her record and what she spent her discretionary funds on. And first of all, it's not you spending that discretionary money, it's taxpayer dollars. So it's not you whose money that is to take credit for. The second notion that you like to put out there is that you've spent, you know, so much money, millions of dollars. What's the number you use? $60 million? Over an 8-year record in the city council, $60 million is really not a lot of money. And if you look at the money that you've distributed in the community, the average check was $5,000. $5,000 to community organizations. That doesn't seem to me to be capacity building. It seems to me to be political patronage, political payola, you know, spreading money around just to say that you gave money to organizations. We need to use that funding to make sure that we kickstart real investment in this community and real investment that's going to have some legs and it's really going to make a bigger difference with organizations that are doing good work.
Ms. Dickens?
Thank you so much, Valerie. First of all, I just want to correct erroneous, once again, information that my opponent has and propels out into the air. And that is, in my first year, in 2006, I was blessed with the support of a great city council and a great speaker that I was able to put $30 million in 1 year into my district. And that is not just for discretionary, that's with capital, that's for schools, that's for libraries, that's for health and hospitals. That is not for just individual organizations. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to give correction to, and some truth and knowledge instead of lack of information, and just throwing out poor information, is that that my opponent, and I think I understand I'm not quite sure because I don't always know what he's talking about, is participatory budgeting, which I don't agree with. It's new, it's being used, and some of my colleagues in the city council are using it. However, it's only a very, very small amount. It's $1 million that they're using in it, very small amount, $1 million. And at the end of the day, the community has no idea whether that council member actually put that $1 million or any part of it into any of the groups that was voted on. I have spoken repeatedly to the community, and they have no idea what was done at the end of the day. But having said that, the transparency is very important. And Speaker Quinn made a lot of changes in order to ensure that discretionary funding was transparent and fair. Each of us gets the same amount for aging, and each of us gets the same amount for youth groups. And what the discretionary is used for is allows us to put into the community-based organizations that have very small budgets, such as Harlem Mothers Save, such as some of the others, such as Voices, such as Image Nation, that, yes, I do ask that I put those in. And yes, it is the citizens' dollars. It is not my personal funding because I don't have that kind of money. But it is the the money that is as revenue generated from the city. And each of us, if we were not afforded the opportunity to indeed be able to use discretionary funding, those small organizations would die. They would not be able to exist because their budgets are so small. That's why frequently with developers, I ask them to give back to the community by giving free space, such as I did with Harlem Mother Save, such as I did with the Harlem Jets of Harlem, which is the local team for the youth for football, such as I have done for Harlem Little League. I can go on and on and on because the developers, they develop in our communities, and I ask them to put in an investment by giving free space.
Thank you, Ms. Dickens. I'm going to have to call time. So let's move on to another question. What can the City Council do to pave the way for the new federal health care initiative, which will go into effect in 2014? Mr. Morgan?
I think the first thing that the city can do, it can make sure that it provides resources to educate people about the program and what's available. The second thing it needs to do is to make sure that the city resources are in line with the federal programming and that we continue to provide resources to our hospital system, which is under attack. In Harlem, we have a lot of clinics and a lot of secondary healthcare institutions, and we need to make sure that those institutions have the resources they need so that they can meet the demand of the people that will be newly covered by healthcare.
Ms. Dickens?
This president was the first that was able to get through a comprehensive health care plan that allowed all of us to have the much needed insurance in order for all of us to have equal access to quality health care. Our city has borne the bulk of the cost of much of the health care. It's been unfair to the city. We need the additional federal dollars and funding that we have gotten in the past and that we're entitled to in order to protect our health and hospital that is in the city of New York and the hospitals in the other parts of the state that don't have a health and hospital that affords quality health care to everyone. No one is turned away. That's what the city of New York is known for, not turning anyone away to health care. But as the budget has shrunk, as revenue has shrunk, the cost has gone higher and higher. And as a result, it has become a budget dance in order to give equal quality access to all. And this health care bill is great. I'm so happy. All of us in the country are happy about it. It's that we need to make it equal, and the information does need to be available.
Okay, Mr. Morgan, council members recommend half the members of the community boards in their district. Do you have any criteria for such appointments, and how will you use the board's recommendations, particularly on land use?
That's an excellent question, and that's something that most people in the city don't realize. A lot of important work is done on community boards, and I think one of my initiatives is going to be to make sure that we open up the dialogue about service on a community board to get more people actively engaged. You can only fill the community board seats with the audience of people who apply to the community boards. And I wish more and more people would use that opportunity to commit to a certain form of public service in their own lives, because they can really make a difference. So the first thing is really just making sure we have a larger audience of people to select from the application process.
In the borough of Manhattan, we have a great borough president, Scott Stringer, who advertises it. All of the council members advertise it in our newsletters. The borough president of Manhattan, because that's the only borough I can really talk about, he advertises it in community papers and local papers. We speak about it at all community organizations and at all meetings. We sent out notices to tenant organizations. We sent out notices to the NYCHers in order for as many people as possible to put in an application. And the application process is not to prevent people from applying. It's to ensure that they actually either live in the community or have a business in the community, so that there can be as many people as possible to apply.
Thank you. We're going to go right to the closing statements now. Mr. Morgan, I think you're first.
Thank you very much. And thanks again to the League of Women Voters and the Manhattan Network Television for agreeing to host this. It was a great time. We're at a critical juncture in New York City. We are going to elect a new mayor, and whoever that new mayor may be is going to have a strong city council who's a counterpoint to them, and a strong city council that's making recommendations to that mayor and working with that mayor, hopefully, to make sure that this community and this city move forward in a positive fashion. In order to do that, we have to have a city council that has integrity, and they have the belief of the people that have put them in office. And the incumbent has, from her record, shown herself to be someone who has victimized people who are under her direct purview in her own buildings. She is someone who has refused to take responsibility for her actions. She is someone who has lost the faith of the people because of her actions. She has victimized residents, she's victimized tenants, and put them in a very vulnerable situation. So I really hope that folks will understand that we need to send new leadership that has a plan of action and that can bring the integrity back to the City Council District and Community District 9. Thank you.
Ms. Dickens, your closing.
Thank you, Valerie, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you to MNN for hosting not only this debate, but all the debates that you do in order to bring equal access to all candidates. Having said that, I do stand on my record, because I do have a record of support for my community and its residents, not only for affordable housing and quality housing, but to protect our cultural institutions in parks, such as the protection of the fire watchtower, the only surviving watchtower in the country is right here in Marcus Garvey Park. And I've been blessed to be able to provide the funding to protect it. I have been blessed to provide funding of the taxpayer dollars to organizations that stand tall, such as the Schomburg, such as to protect the murals, the historic murals at Harlem Hospital. I've been blessed to do that. And I do not shrink from my family who is working with the City of New York in order to ensure that anything that has been perpetrated by my opponent is in fact cleared if there is anything out there that is not correct, because I do not shrink from responsibility. I have always stood tall on my record and my family's record. And I thank my district, I thank my community for the support that you have historically given me, and I humbly ask for you to continue to support me. Thank you.
I want to thank both candidates for participating in today's debate. For more information about voting, the candidates, and your poll site, you can contact the League of Women Voters New York City at www.lwvnyc.org, vote411.org, or call 212-725-3541. Remember, only registered voters enrolled in the political party having a primary election may vote on September 10th. All registered voters, regardless of party, vote in the general election on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.